Nathan Day in the building, yeah. Let me say it as it is. Let me say it as it is. I owe Jesus everything. Woo. I'ma say it as it is.
Yeah, man. Hey, let me just start off by saying this, okay? I did a whole first listen reaction to this album, and then when I finished recording, I realized that the audio input, my mic audio input, was not recorded. So you've got all this video, all this passionate commentary on this amazing project, and the audio wasn't recorded. So you guys unfortunately have missed out on the first reaction to this album. So it's so painful, man. I'm sorry to you guys. I really wanted to do a first listen reaction to this album. So I'm now remaking the video, but obviously it's no longer a first reaction. It's just gonna be a review of the album. Anyway, this project, the reason why I'm remaking this video is because this is how much I love and respect this guy. His name is Samson. He is one of many amazing upcoming artists in the UK scene of Christian hip hop. So if you're unfamiliar with UK Christian hip hop, make sure you check out this guy. But there's also, of course, a whole history and a whole legacy of other more established and incredible UK artists. Some of you globally might have heard of Governor B. He did a song with Andy Mineo some years back, and that was featured on the Work in Progress project by Andy Mineo. So Keeping It Moving was the song. So Governor B is like a version of Lecrae, if you will. You know, he's probably our biggest CHH artist in the UK. In the past, we've had people like Dwayne Triumph, who has collaborated with Lecrae, and you know, so we've got some vets in the game who, you know, and people like Esso, you know, Esso, I need to know more about his life story because he's got a twang of American in his accent. So I know he's been living in America and living in the UK, but it seems that the UK is where he really comes from. So it's great to have him representing CHH on the more global scale, in terms of coming from the UK. And then in terms of artists we've got coming up, some of you who have been following the Reach Records summer playlist will know of Melvis, Still Shady, 678. These are kind of the current generation of Christian hip hop artists who have got bars. I think if one, not just in Christian hip hop, but in music globally and rap globally and generally, like we are lyricists here in the UK. Like we are like bar for bar, we can carry our own, and we've been doing that through grime, we've been doing it through drill, and you kind of see that in the Christian hip hop scene that we've got going on. So Samson, he's a friend of mine. We haven't met in person yet. God willing, that will be soon. But yeah, we've been connecting the past 2 years. I featured Samson on my Mental Roots podcast as well. So Mental Roots is my organization, my creative organization that I'm building. And it's a multimedia company where we do client work but also do original content, all geared towards helping the Black community heal mentally, and you know, even heal spiritually as well. So it's looking at the roots behind the mental health issues that are happening in Afro-Caribbeans, and you know, undoing the stigma of mental health in that. So I'm an animator first and foremost. So you know, I've animated content, and I've got the Mental Roots podcast, which complements the animation as well. So if you want to check out more of that, that is in the Mental Roots YouTube channel. So the link to that will be in the description. But season 1 of the podcast was done before I created the YouTube channel for Mental Roots. So if you want to check out season 1 of the Mental Roots podcast, that is on this same channel, Nathan Day. So if you go on my page, and you'll see a playlist for all the episodes of season 1 for the Mental Roots podcast. And Samson, the guy who I'm about to review right now, he was my second guest on it. So, you know, he expands on kind of his upbringing, growing up in an African family, navigating his identity as a Black boy. And we kind of see some of that influencing this debut project from him actually. It is quite autobiographical. And it's called Green Roses. So Green Roses is a great project. I believe it's his first album. He has been releasing a few singles up until this point. And if I was to summarize Samson's music, I would say that it's rich in lyrics, rich in production, rich in substance as well. He can create bops, I'll tell you that. He's just turned 23 this year, and you know, even the songs that he's released to celebrate his birthday have been vibey and have been occasions in their own right, you know. So he's released a few singles here and there, and he's already shown a lot of versatility. He can create a trap banger, he can give you bars, he can give you that UK flavor. He can do a drill beat, trap beat, boom bap beat. You know, he's got that versatility, and a standout single for me is Where I believe came out in 2020 or 2021, either one of them, and definitely one of his most introspective yet. The past few years has been a challenging couple of years for specific reasons that I'm currently unaware of, but I can understand COVID and pressure with work has compounded on these things. Again, kind of considering what we were talking about in our Mental Roots interview. So I know he's been through quite a bit, and we see that influence in this project. Born is a strong opener to the album. You can see a tracklist here on Spotify, and as I was playing it, you know, Born is a strong opener, kind of talking about his roots, growing up in the ends, navigating inner city life, and you know, talking about again his upbringing. You know, he mentions his grandma kind of not understanding his musical goals and ambitions. And me knowing Samson, I know he's a really creative guy. There's other creative things that he's doing as well, outside of music, or at least he has done outside of music. But it seems over the past couple of years and months, he's doubled down a bit more on the music side, and I've been seeing his Instagram lives. I've been seeing, you know, follow him on social media as well. You know, I've been seeing his stories, him being in the studio, working on all these beats. Great producer. He knows how to flip a sample really well. And yeah, man, and I did have relatively high expectations, especially considering I'm part of this massive group chat of UK Christian artists and things like that. And so other people in the group chat were like, yo, Samson, this project is amazing, production is amazing, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I had to refrain myself from listening to it too early because I wanted to do the live reaction. But yeah, I can see why everyone was so hyped up in the group chat because, yeah, you know, Samson, you know, has an ear for production. I don't know how many of these songs that he's produced. If he produced all of them or nearly all of them, that would be really impressive. Born is a strong opener lyrically. Stu, short for Studio, is the track 2. It follows on well. You know, again, you've got the storytelling vibes talking about the mentors and the role models that he's had in his musical journey to help him even have access to a studio, to even aspire to take the music thing seriously. So he, you know, he gives his props and his thanks to those who have helped him along the journey. I was saying in the other video I recorded that I relate a lot to Samson's story. You know, even when I was in school as a teenager, coming to think a lot more about my faith in Jesus and how I could even share that in my music. You know, I was also similar to what Samson mentions in Born, you know, being part of a talent competition, and that kind of built his confidence. And we had an in-school talent competition in mine as well. It was a battle of the bands. I remember that was like the first time I really like wrote a cohesive song, and it did infuse my faith as a Christian, and it got great reception in the school, even though most of the people obviously at my school were not Christians, obviously. So it was great to see that sharing your faith in a cool way in your music can still hit in all areas and spaces. And Samson has had that exposure. You know, I think he's been on the BBC introducing, I can't remember for which area, but he's been featured on BBC Introducing, which is here in the UK is like a pretty big thing for new upcoming artists. to have their music being played on a radio station. So he's had that exposure, you know, he's been at gigs, he's been making connections with some pretty big people, and he's well on his way to do big things, and this project really shows that. Woods is one of the singles that was released, so Woods kind of tells a bit more of a story of how when he was young, growing up in this area, things seemed a bit safer than how they are now. There seems to be a lot more kind of less sense of community in the end, and I know that's in relation to kind of the decline of youth clubs and things happening for the youth that we've seen happen over the years in the UK, lack of funding for it and stuff. So again, it's observing the change in his environment and where he grew up. I mean, Come Over is one of the highlights for me. Definitely one of the better produced beats on the album, in my opinion. And it tells a story of Samson overcoming temptation. There's a girl that, by the sounds of it, you know, maybe be coming to his church, or, you know, a girl who might even be a Christian. And you know how it is as young guys, even when you're a Christian, you know, when you're dating girls or when you're getting with girls, or when girls come to you and they might say, hey, we could just link up, Netflix and chill, that sort of thing. So it's like a very PG version of J. Cole's Dreams, if you will. It's got that soulful sample in the background, very romantic, very chilled back, but also very real. I'm sure that's inspired by a real experience that Samson has had, you know, with an old flame back in the day. And yeah, just very real, relatable stuff that young Christian guys can relate to. And then Opaque is one of the standout tracks for me. So great collaboration with Dave Creates. Dave Creates is another strong artist in our current generation of Christian hip hop here in the UK. He himself is very versatile. Again, great lyricist, and he brings an excellent guest verse on there. This is probably Samson's strongest track on the project lyrically. Spitting verses that are really strong, and the whole idea of Opaque is, you know, not letting people see through you too much, not revealing too much about yourself, you know, being low key, and just moving in silence, you know, and not in a sinister way, obviously, but, you know, whatever area God called you into, just focus on that and do that with excellence, and don't do it in a way where you're trying to attract too many eyes on you. You know, don't tell everyone your business, don't tell everyone your dreams. Be smart about who you let in your inner circle. So that's the message of the song, and it's one of the bangers on there. 22 is a single that I think came out last year, so it was when Samson was turning 22. So it's a nice, happy, positive song. It seems a bit weird that this song has been put on the album and not 23. 23 was just released some months ago, so I'm surprised 23 isn't on here, because that would have been a more accurate representation of Samson's current state of mind and where he's currently at with his music. But 22 is still a bop. 23 is still a bop as well. So that's one of his recent singles you can check out. Where To is an interesting interlude, which actually pulls inspiration from his older single called Where. So that he uses the same sample on that single, which unfortunately isn't on this album. I would have sequenced the song Where after the Where To interlude. So again, you can go and check that out on his on streaming platforms. Samson Where, strong track, which he goes in a bit more detail about kind of the struggles that he's been through, navigating mental health and loneliness and things like that. Maybe some, I don't know if there was a bereavement he experienced in the past couple of years that influenced that song. But nevertheless, you know, we're not missing out much with that song not being on this album, because we get a similar vibe with Green Roses, the title track of the album. And Green Roses is probably the most introspective I've heard Samson. And it explains the whole theme of what the green roses represent. So it represents new life and new growth, and positive, like a new beginning basically, and nature. And so that explains kind of the artwork. I know I'm showing a different artwork of another album I'm going to review later, but if I just change the track. And by the way, another thing that stands out is the skits. In 9 tracks, which are all around 3 minutes max, it's interesting that he still manages to fit in some entertaining skits. So this album opener, somehow he pulls up a Breakfast Club interview, so he's got the voices of DJ Envy and Charlemagne, and he's interjecting his voice in there. So it makes it sound like he's being interviewed on Breakfast Club, and Charlemagne keeps interrupting him. So I think that's absolutely hilarious. But it goes to show, you know, Samson's wit with creating a body of work. And it shows his aspirations as well. He's a very ambitious guy. He's already connected with various musicians he looks up to. So this is only the beginning, you know, and it's great to see him imagine himself being on a platform like the Breakfast Club. You know, me knowing Samson, I know he's a very ambitious guy. So this album shows a lot of potential, a lot of versatility. You've got introspection, you've got great production, musical production. Green Roses is also a standout production-wise. The sample that he uses is hauntingly beautiful, is how I would use to describe it. And again, has a similar vibe to Where. If Where was sandwiched in between the Where 2 interlude and Green Roses, I think that would have been perfect sequencing for me. But nevertheless, we finished the album with a great positive banger. We've got Ya, which has almost like an Afrobeats flavour to it, like an Afro swing kind of feel to it. But he's spitting on there. I think it's the best track in terms of just overall combination of lyrics with musicality, with production. The bass guitar in that one is really good, and just the groove in it shows Samson really does have an ear for good musicality, and he references his faith in God a lot more in this song as well. So the body of work does tell a story on where Samson comes from what has inspired his musical journey, and the personal things that he's navigated along the way. So if he can condense that much information into just 9 tracks, one of which is even an interlude, then how much more could he convey in an even more full body of work with even more features, more time spent on it, and more tracks. So I really look forward to the next few projects from Samson on this. Samson, if you're watching this, big ups to you. You've done a great job. I'm not going to say you've outdone yourself, because you haven't. You've got a lot more in the tank. You've got a lot more to offer. So, but this is a very promising first project from you, bro. So big love to you, man. We'll keep in touch. Actually, you know what? Since Samson is an upcoming artist who I believe deserves a lot more numbers and a lot more exposure, I'm going to play the music for you. I was going to do the whole video, you know, just talking about the album, but I want you guys to get a flavour of this, because this guy needs exposure, man. He's got a lot of talent and potential. So let me just skim through some of my highlights, man. Let me skim through it.
Angela Yee, Charlemagne the Guy, we are the Breakfast Club.
Tell him, get it off your chest, man.
Well, I'm trying to get it off my chest, and you're just interrupting me.
I don't understand the angle. Like,
what do you mean you don't understand the angle?
So
I'm trying
come
to.
here.
What do you mean? Why you invited me? I was born in London, but I was raised in WD. Switch locations, and it was claiming, and them weren't coming in year or free. Hypovers, Monopoly, PlayStation, get new train. Been a long time coming, but at least them Martin moving. Grandma weren't too keen hearing that I'm doing music. B, playing them keys, feeling like Stevie Wonder. My cousin saw that I could be great, and it quickly took me under. You know what? Just record it now. Don't even stop it. Just record it. I'm here again. Still my enemies fear my pen. Cause of my
I wish there were more of these melodic moments in the album.
I still murk, but it depends on the state of trends.
Because he's got a nice melody look here, so more of that in the future, hopefully.
Still my enemies fear my pen. About me, cause I'm not involved. They don't know about culture. They don't know about getting 3 relapse in a row. And
3 relapse.
AKA Lucian Foxbro, did you get the memo?
If you know, you know.
Won't work, I'm mellow.
Growing up, it was always quiet in the woods. No fear, we could stroll in the night in the woods. Now there's kids selling drugs, getting high in the woods. Throwing away their lives in the woods. And I was growing up, it was always quiet in the woods. No fear, we could stroll in the night in the woods. Now let's
back down down. By the time I got back, the world was in lockdown.
The world was in
Time
lockdown.
I woke up early, tired from the late nights. Text from show pay, telling me it's outside. Get in the car, go gym and lift weight. Then I'd work, nothing wild, just like every other day. Same night.
That sample hit the beat though.
Saw this girl on the bus, we had eye contact, you could feel the spark in the air. I got off at her stop, meant I had a way longer walk back.
That
I
beat
didn't
is
care. She had clocked my ploy, Shameless, how can he meet it over? I said, girl, man, you can't come over and ask me again, man, I already told you.
Already told.
But she was back, saying, shy boy, do you not like me? Tried to explain about how I'm abstaining. No,
And then we've got this bar fest. Repeat.
Devil would
Hear
have
that,
asked me to
haters?
prove it, but I don't
Hear
be
that, fam?
foolish.
That's
What
the
are you
UK thing,
shooting?
man.
Are you all in the renuncias? I don't talk too much, rather stay
This
low
is how
key.
we do it
Move
over
off the
here.
bit so the fakes don't see. Cause see me now, but you can't see through me.
See me now, but you can't see through me. See me now, but you can't see through.
Eyes on the free, so we made opaque moves.
Opaque
See me now,
moves.
but you can't see through.
Time rising again, the fellow with the gold rhymes in the pen. I'm better
creates
going put
future.
the time in again. All the rappers shot me hiding again. I'm sonic booming, gone, I'm gliding again. My own business that I'm minding again. And babe, with the
Flowing.
movements, we all
See me now, but you can't see through.
Nah, let
See
me
now, but
rewind
you
that
can't
one.
see through. See me now, but you can't see through.
overt, trying less to do the most of more words. See, we live in opaque. We ready, steady, hitting home runs from the home plate. Whole place going wild. This is real, it's not the role play. When we hit the stage like Soul Train.
And then 22, a lot of people have heard this one, as you can see from the streaming numbers. Again, Samson samples really well, so this is the flavor of how he samples. Go for the beat drop.
Still trying to make moves. Countless hours spent in the stew. Giving them my all, got nothing to lose. We'll see what life is like at 22.
And then the emotional peak point of this album. This is the sampling I'm talking about. Listen to that.
Hey, Samson.
I get dreams of green roses, sweat and tears before I wrote this. I know how it feels to have your problems. Do my toes, it's like you count them on your hand, but unprovoked they go and move for a minute. Not knees and talk to God, and I get dreams of green roses. I'm not meant to be real when life gets hard. I'm on my knees, I'm talking to God. I get dreams of green roses.
Green roses represent nature, rejuvenation and fertility. This can be a rejuvenation in spiritual body, and often the green rose is used to symbolize stability and balance. Green roses can be said to express hope in times of struggle.
There you go. So that's the meaning of the whole green roses analogy. And this is what the closer sounds like.
Yo, wake up.
This build up is incredible.
See the west to the east. I worked in my craft and I prayed for my time on the scene. The man have never left my team. 19 like IG. I've still never sell out my theme. Will you know about heritage? Caught every kind of curveball, no I'm Merkel. Made sacrifices cause dreams are worth all the strife and the grind. Open your eyes, well for the lies. Signs of the times.
Hey,
You can't
let's
compete
go.
cause I'm already winning.
Yours in my spirit, so I'm joyful within.
Oh, I'm so weird doing this in front of a camera by myself. Music bands, music bands. Thank you for checking out this quick review. Again, sorry it's not a first time reaction. That recording would have been so good for you guys to see. But nevertheless, if you've lasted until the end of this video, then that means you like my content. So make sure you smash that like button, and so that boost it on the algorithm so that more of this content can be shared, especially my reactions to UK CHH, because there's not a lot of this stuff on YouTube. So push that algorithm by liking this, commenting your thoughts on the project as well, and if you've heard it, and then also comment your thoughts on UK Christian hip hop if you're outside of the UK. What do you think about the UK stuff that you've heard so far? If you haven't heard any, then then let me know. If you have heard some and there's some favorite UK artists that you have in the CHH community, comment those in the comments as well. And then of course subscribe, man. And thank you to the new subscribers, those of you who have been subscribing very recently from the Lecrae, Daunty and the CHH journey video I did. Thank you to you guys for subscribing. More of you need to subscribe, and the next video is going to come really soon, so keep an eye out for that. hit the bell for the notifications so you know what's going on. And until next time, peace. Take care, guys.